Right, let's look at different ways of crawling, and when you're prone you're going to have to move around. That in itself's a key skill. So you can see that's just moving by using your extremities to just lift your body slightly off the ground and pushing with your toes, pulling with your arms or your fingers, and just lifting yourself clear of the cover and moving forward a small distance. And this is a good way of just keeping flat and moving forward, where you're not actually observing, you're just navigating off treetops. You're often looking at trees thinking, that's a good 40 yards away and that's more where I want to be. Get your head down, start crawling. Don't start lifting your head, craning your neck to look around. Instead what you're doing is you're just looking at that treetop, and you can do that from very low down, and you're just working off sounds. So that these are key skills, and this is how you'll go unnoticed. Once you start looking around, you're offering other people a chance to detect you. If you just completely take that out of the equation, they can't detect you because you're not in line of sight. So consider there's many times where you're just going to wait or work off sound or just move without offering any chance for you to gauge visual lines of sight. So this way you can get through enemy lines, or you can just be in an area long enough where they've discounted it. No, there's no one there, there's nothing happening. So later on in the game that'll pay dividends. Now this is a kind of snaking crawl mentioned by someone like Carlos Hathcock, who will tell you he laid on his side when he crawled across that 1,000 yards, so that he left a lot less footprint. Now when your body's flat on the ground, it's straight down, you're leaving like a 2 foot or more wide trail of crushed foliage as you move across the field. This is why I'm saying to you about lifting your body clear. If you can't lift your body clear, another good technique, like I've just shown you there, is to snake along on your side. That way you're only leaving like a little trail, more like an animal trail rather than someone's crawled past here recently. So the further you can reduce your footprint as you're moving or crawling, the less trace there is that you're going to be detected from. So other ways of moving, obviously a lot of people are used to just standing upright. Now the problem with upright is I can be detected from a long way away. Even people who are prone can see me. The way that line of sight works, because I'm higher up, I can be detected from down here. Once I'm at the ground level, there's all this ground covering the way. There's no way I can be detected. So in open areas you don't want to be upright as a rule, unless you've already worked out you've been detected, and there's nowhere to hide. As a rule, you'll always work crouched. Now this will really test your all your muscles in your legs, your thighs, your actual ability to balance, and endurance, and it's something you need to build up to. You'll find the first few days you do this kind of movement all day, you will basically the next day you'll seize up. You won't be used to using those muscles very much at all, other than climbing stairs or getting up and down off a chair. So you know, the way that you play is going to alter your physical fitness, and it's going to make demands on your body that aren't evident in regular upright everyday life. So put some time in, just lots of stretching, being supple. You know, you need to be supple. You need to have that ability to just move, crawl, do whatever you need to do, and that in itself is an edge, because when you're moving stealthily, every movement that you make or do, it can give you away. So if it takes you 3 movements just to move that little distance rather than 1 controlled movement, you're 3 times more likely to give yourself away. So as people get nearer and nearer, it'll become more and more intense, and you'll start to realise that actually I don't even want to move my hand because I feel it's blocking my face or whatever. You just feel I'm already there and been noticed, and you'll start to realise controlled movement and slow motion is the way to then bring your rifle up, turn, and depending what your target's doing, when he's looking at you, you're doing nothing, and then when he's not, you're lining up and take the shot. But whatever you do, all of that is stamina. It's going to take control and muscle control, and it will tire you. It'll tire your muscles. So the fitter you are, the more just physical fitness you do outside of the game will benefit you in the game. However, in the game you've got to know your own limits. So if you're not feeling you're up to certain standards that you maybe used to be or that you hope to be, you're going to have to gauge what's happening and figure that's what I'd like to do, but at this stage I'm not fit enough to do that. It might be having to crawl down some really steep bank that takes a lot of physical strength and stamina to stop yourself from sliding more as you're crawling down. You know, these things you'll have to reassess what you're doing, and although it might work for another player, it might not work for you. Other than that, it's just being used to just moving in that crouch, that ability to just drop onto your haunches and just wait it out. So I'm moving along, I see something and just go down. From here I can either go down to the deck, and then once I'm on the deck and I know he's behind the hill, I can then work out where I want to be moving to. Again, looking at treetops, all of those navigation aids that you're going to use when you're lower down. It's something that a lot of people overlook. So that's the basics of movement, which is move slowly, move smoothly, and move with a purpose, and avoid your head looking around. You hear a noise, so instead of just snapping round, you're gonna if you remember, you're even gonna freeze at first, then you're maybe gonna just look using your eyes and decide from there what you're gonna do. But when all these things happen, the best defense is to just freeze. Look at animals, look at what they do. As soon as they detect something, they stop, and then they decide, is it a predator, is it prey, am I going to attack, am I going to flee? So, you know, take a leaf out of nature's book, look at how animals operate. Obviously most animals are quite low to the ground and they tend to prefer cover. If they're not, then the more animals that have speed to escape, such as rabbits, deer, all these things. And as a hunter or airsoft sniper, you also need that burst of speed. Now there's times where you realise I'm in someone's sights, there's been a shot at me, I'm out of here, I'm zigzagging, I'm running, I'm trying to work out direction it came from, I'm trying to work out what direction I feel it's safe immediately to run in. I'm going to start running, but I might alter my course. So you've got to be able to go from like an absolute standstill with no warm-up to I'm sprinting and I'm getting, you know, I might cross 50 yards and get down, and I feel that that's going to put me in a much safer position out of someone's fire arc or ambush. So you need that combination of stealth and slow creeping, stalking technique, and then suddenly move into a burst of speed where you might shoot someone and then follow up on their partner, or it might be an engagement and you decide you're going to do the long flank quickly. which is obviously where you move wide around your opponent, but at a distance where he can't detect you. So although you're moving quickly and noisily, going that wide and that quickly to get around behind him, that he can't detect you. All that's gambling, but it's also part of the game. And you know, there's many times in a game where it's make or break, and you've got to either do or die. So it's being able to assess when that moment is and what's going to give you the best possibility of success. Right, moving on. Obviously, when you're gaming, skirmishing, hunteering, mill sims, all of these games, no matter what basic level, you're doing one thing in all of them, which is you are picking a route. Now, route planning, all these options that you have in a game, they all give you different probabilities of either head-on engagement or moving to a flank or rear position. And this is what you need to be assessing. If I go straight down the middle, what's the chances I'm going to get behind my opponent? Well, it isn't nil. If you play a clever game, move forward quickly at the beginning, go to ground, wait for the game to roll past you, hey presto, you are behind them. But that's going to take time, and it all dependent on what happens in the game. You know, if your team get the upper hand and start pushing forward, your effort's been wasted. You will end up in your own team's rear area. So, you know, heading for the flanks, but not necessarily the wide flanks. Obviously, the widest flanks by the boundaries, where everybody anticipates that someone's going to flank. So, you know, if you feel there's players on the other team who are getting wise to you or are wise to your ways, then the extreme flank isn't necessarily the best place to go. It's more of a shallower flank than that, and again mixed with waiting, because obviously there's other people on these flanks in the game who are either trying to push through like you are, coming in the opposite direction, or they're just set up to hold the flank. And these are the people that really are your opponents in that particular type of engagement. You know, if you can outwit or outshoot the flank guards, then next thing you know, you're going to be in the best position, which is behind the enemy team. So all these routes, you start off with a wide route plan. I'm going to head down the right hand side of this field near the boundary or wherever you're going to go. But as you come to each section, you'll start to realise there's little options here and there. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to try and look at the routes at hand, the imminent routes. Some are easy, they're the path of least resistance. Now, yeah, you will use these routes. I use these routes because they're quicker, and sometimes you deem it's early enough in the game that no one can have actually reached this area yet, or later in the game you'll start to gamble and nobody's in this particular sector. But the later in the game it is, the more random that becomes, and the less fruitful it becomes to pick the main routes. You need to start using the little animal trails, just a little opening in the bushes, just you can see where, you know, small game move through the grass and undergrowth. These become the routes that are going to circumnavigate the ambushes, and these become the routes that you have to use to be successful later on in the game, depending on the length of the game. If the game's very quick, you know, there's less route planning, there's less planning overall. It's more of a react to what's happening, counter and shoot, ambush, shoot, or flank and shoot. Whereas bigger games, longer games, games with more options, they change how you play, and they should change how you play, because more options become available, more intel becomes relevant, and it's all about you weighing up. Right, it's an afternoon game, it's 4 hours long. Well, quite a lot can happen in 4 hours. Play it as if it's a full day game, you know. Whereas if they say it's an hour game and then we're going to have lunch, well, there's no point heading off on a wide flank in that game, is there? Because by the time you reach the wide flank and come back in and a bit of stalking, you aren't going to pay for yourself. Now, this is the other thing. You've got to pay for yourself in the game. You know, if your team's 10 players and so are the enemy team, but two of you decide you're snipers and you're going to be on the flank. Now, if most of the game you don't see anyone or don't do anything, then really it's 10 men against 8. So the more of you who are sniping, the more effective you need to be, or you're just leaving your main sort of assault, you know, sort of contemporary AEG team to battle it out over the objectives. So if you're a lone player, it's not so bad. You can head off to the flank. If you shoot out 3 guys and don't get shot, you've paid for yourself. You know, you'll have tied them up, you'll have denied them area, and you've done more, inflicted more damage than you've sustained. Whereas if there's 2 of you, go out on the flank and, you know, you shoot out a lone sniper coming round and the game ends, well, yeah, you were successful, but really you didn't pay for yourselves. You know, there's a chance that your team's lost just because there were 20% or 10% less manpower than the other team on that flank. So not everybody can head for the flank. You know, people have to have that mix of completing the objectives and countering the other team's efforts to hinder you while attacking yourself. So this is why at the beginning of the game it's crucial you talk to the team captain. Now let's face it, most games don't have a team captain, and this is the flaw of many sites. They don't nominate a team captain. People don't really have any kind of hierarchy or organisation, and it just becomes a bit of a rabble, every man for himself, sort of deathmatch style. You know, more purpose will win the game. So overall, a commander, someone who decides, right, 6 will move up the centre, 2 on the left, 1 on the right, and 1 up the near right. You know, then that gives you a game structure. It's like playing American football without having some kind of manager or calling a play. It's just chaos, it's just a blitz, isn't it? So strategy and communicating with the rest of your team. Now, it's the thing, just because you're on the flank doesn't mean that you actually want to be completely and utterly isolated from them. Use radios, use hand signals, shout at times when the game's near the end and things are critical. You might need to shout to convey information, you know, but you need to be contributing to the team as far as intelligence goes. As I was saying earlier, if there's 2 of you, you want to shoot out 1 guy, it's not contributing too much. Whereas if most of the game you've also called in all the enemy movements to your team leader and it's affected how your team's pushed and played, then you have paid for yourself. So as well as shooting people, which is what nearly all players focus on, there's also the overall picture of gathering information and passing that to your team. So don't just look at sniping as being the guy who does all the long shots or the one-hit kills or headshots, or, you know, he's just lethal. It's not about that. He can often win the game, and you only find out at the end it's because he's been in amongst you, but not giving himself away by shooting people. He's just been calling out every play on the radio, and you've been wondering how every time you do something the other team seems to be there ready. So, you know, there's many ways of doing that. Obviously getting amongst the other team's good, you can hear what they're actually even saying if you're close enough, but the other way is actually thinking, kind of head right out onto a wide flank and there's a big hill there. I just use my really powerful optics and radio and call in anything that's happening. At the same time, if anyone else flanks around this high ground, I'm there to counter them. So different strategies, every game's different. You know, there's been times where you have to adapt in the game. For example, let's just have a look down here. Right, I remember in a game down here where our team got to a stage where there was sentries all in this field. There was actually a wrecked helicopter in the field at the time, and we needed to flank round. This is that long ago, there wasn't even any of these saplings here, and it ended up the only option was to get down in this river. So that's what I ended up having to do, and it was the right option. I circumnavigated all the enemy sentries. Some were metres away from me as I waded down up to my chest down here, and I managed to come out behind the entire enemy team in their base, shoot the entire team, and although it was a personal sacrifice, it shows that there's many times where most players will just discount somewhere. They'll go, nah, there's no way I'm going in that river, it's wet. You know, I mean, it wasn't winter, it wasn't cold, it wasn't even cold getting in the river, it wasn't even any hardship. It was just thinking outside the box and pushing myself a little bit further on. I mean, you can see on this riverbank, it can soon disappear anyway, and I've hidden many times on riverbanks where people have literally, teams have known I'm on a stretcher bank and they've come from both ends, and I'm literally just down behind the actual bank itself. Yeah, it's a place of discomfort, yeah, I'm wet, as long as I keep my kit dry, which is on my upper body. So this is the other reason why there's a chest rig. I can wade up to about here, yeah, and like, that's pretty deep water. I don't want to go any deeper than that, I'm going to drown. So obviously as you're moving through, feet are just feeling across the river, you know, the riverbed, to feel that I'm not going to step into deep water before I then transfer my weight. And obviously you're moving slowly, otherwise you're creating splash, noise, ripples, and at any point you can just lean into the bank and become part of the bank. So you know, consider all the safety rules at the site, and consider, you know, is it a raging torrent? Well, I'm not going to get in it. But if it's something like this, I know it's only going to be about 3 foot deep at the very most, and like I say, I'm not just jumping in, you know, I'm feeling my way along the river. So personal sacrifice, bit of discomfort, crawling through bogs, swamps, down trenches filled with water, huge amounts of mud. You've got to be able to put yourself through these things if you want to actually like be as successful as you hope, because all of these sites have areas that you'll find people avoid. The disgusting, horrible, smelly, boggy places, the wet, you know. Just buy decent kit, you know, use seal skin socks, use military grade Gore-Tex waterproofs, you know, buy decent boots. I mean, most games are 1 day long, so you're going home after that, you might as well just do your best to be successful, and when you get home, hang it up outside. It's no hardship. So consider what, you know, consider what your own limits are and try and push them a bit further, and that's really what our gaming's all been about, and why we've ended up creating Hunteering itself, to be the harder game that will push us. You know, other games in the past, we always felt a little disappointed that there'd be a limit, there'd be an end, there'd be ceasefire, there'd be, oh, let's have a dinner, all them things were removed, you know, to the point where it got to the stage, you go to the car in a Hunteering match, your game's over. That's it, you can't go back out into the game. You're finished. You get the points that you've scored up to that point and you're out. So it's about self-sufficiency, it's about having enough water on you, it's about having enough ammunition on you. You know, these people at the end of the game, at a skirmish, who go, oh, I need to go back to the safe zone to load up, and you think, well, you're carrying all that load bearing equipment, you only need to carry a small amount of BBs, why haven't you gone with you? And this is down to personal admin. Now, as a sniper, you need very good admin, because you don't have time to like be rattling through loads of pockets or taking your rucksack off and pulling stuff out. All that's movement, and the more movement you do, the less hidden you are. So personal admin is about having stuff, say, in this chest pocket here. I can keep, you know, I can keep pistols in that. I'll probably keep 2 in it, maps, food, everything I need in there. And I've got these other pouches, you know, and like, that's plenty. I've got other load bearing kit here. Actually, I've got a little pouch here, you know, I've got a dump pouch, got like a poacher's pouch there. I carry like a large, you know, item of clothing even in that. So I've got a lot of carrying capacity. It's all up on my body, I can crawl around in it, it's not an issue. I try not to load it all up, you know, that's more for like multi-day games. We used to play 5-day events here. You know, this became almost a way of life for that week. There was no phones back then, there was no contact with the outside world, you know. It was game, eat, sleep, game. So with no safe zones. So that's what's forged how we play, and that's what's led us to the place we're at now, where, you know, we're just looking at how we can get the most out of our gaming. How can we push the limits further? We're not interested in just having a run round and a quick plink at a skirm that runs really short games in small areas. It doesn't doesn't scratch the itch, basically. You know, the more you experience these bigger games, the more you want to play these bigger games, and the more the smaller games don't quite provide the satisfaction that you're looking for. So this is what Hunteering has always been about. It's been about trying to sort of provide that for the community. Very few people pick up on it. You know, it is a bit of a backwater, but you know, for those few people, because that's all we're looking for. We're looking for the few good people out there who really are you know, decent people, the honest people, and the fit in. We're very, very welcoming and open-minded. We respect all newcomers, because at the end of the day, we don't know what experience they've got. They might be more experienced than us, there might be veterans, there might be all sorts of things. There might just be, you know, they might just be new, but that doesn't alter our respect for you. It's more about us trying to help you by sharing what we know, and obviously we hope to learn from you as well with things and ideas you've come up with we've not considered or we've not experienced yet. So it's this community thing, Hunteering. It's a group of like-minded players who are always trying to get the most from the game and have a good crack, and you know, push your own personal boundaries and forge some really good memories, and doing that as cheaply as you can as well. Right, so let's go and look at something else.